All right, what's up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome to today's YouTube Live, Friday, November 22nd. How we doing, everyone? Here we go. We're going to talk about a little bit of portal integration, about integrating this portal that has been going on for the past 3 months, September, October, November. So we're going to talk a little bit about the integration of this portal and what this means and what has been happening energetically and what's been sort of going on and what's happening sort of with the energy and just a lot of what this portal has been about. And so I'm probably just going to launch fucking right into it here. Just sort of moving into portal integration. So here we are heading into the last month of November. And so just a lot of what this portal has been about, what sort of the lessons are, what it sort of means, because we're kind of coming to a point now where we're slowly moving out of this portal enough where we're beginning to have a little bit more context of what's been going on. So obviously right when you're in the middle of this shit, you don't really have full context for exactly what's happening. You're so in it, you're so in this compression that you're kind of like, what's going on? What's this about? And so there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to focus on, that I'm going to talk about here. And I'm actually going to talk a lot about relational pieces, relational aspects. So I did a post on my Instagram about how this time period right now is basically been bringing up everything that is not aligned for you with moving into your sacred union timeline. So everything inside of you that is not aligned with the vibration and the timeline of you moving on to your sacred union timeline. And so I'm going to preface this by saying so many people in this spiritual industry talk about sacred union or divine union relationships that are actually pre-divine. You hear people talking about twin flame unions, all these different, kind of this relationship where I was at a fucking retreat in California. All of a sudden I had the name Jeremy in my head. Jeremy, spirit, gently fucking whispered the name Jeremy in my ear. Oh my God, it must mean that I'm manifesting my dream man, my king, my white knight named Jeremy. I was at a cacao ceremony. I was sitting on a fucking pillow in this living room and the name Jeremy kept coming in. Guess what happened? 2 weeks later, I met a guy named Jeremy. Oh my God, he's my sacred union. He is my divine union counterpart. He is the person I'm going to move into this divine union with. You hear a lot of this. Oh, I feel this person coming in. This is all karmic spiritual relationships. This is all trauma bonds of the spirit realm. Do you feel that sort of idea where it's like, I heard the name Jeremy, how wounded that is, how fantasy-like that is? That's not divine union. That's not sacred union. So many people in a bit of the ungrounded spiritual community talk about relationships like this, which I call pre-divine, pre-God, because we're associating that this person, Jeremy, is going to be my savior. This person, Jeremy, is coming in. They're going to be the spiritual sort of salvation. You hear a lot of people being like, I was in a relationship, and then all of a sudden that relationship broke up, and then 2 weeks later I was at a cafe, and there was my divine union partner. It's all wounded bullshit. That's all wounded shit. So many people in the spiritual industry talk about divine union, sacred union through sort of this wounded lens. It's what twin flames are. And typically we need to experience a rupture of this type thing where every fantasy is dispelled. Every sort of fantasy is dispelled from your body. And people are like, well, I want this relationship to be this romance novel. I want this relationship to be like this fucking poem, right? And so But we need to experience typically a break in that so we can come into union with ourself. So all that sort of, I was at a fucking cacao ceremony in California, and spirit gently whispered the name Jeremy, and all of a sudden I knew that Jeremy was the love of my life, and all this sort of shit. Like, that is not sacred union. That is not divine union. So much of what this portal has been about these past 2-3 months is looking everywhere inside of yourself where you sabotage yourself, where you move outside of your own being looking for love and worthiness. And so everything that has not been aligned with your own inner union has been revealed these past 3 months. That's why there's been so much unworthiness that has come to the table. What happens when you experience a really big attachment rupture? Meaning, I thought Jeremy was going to be the love of my life. Again, I was in that ceremony in California, and I kept hearing, Jeremy. And then it doesn't work out with Jeremy. And we think that's the end of God. We're like, oh my God, Jeremy was my divine counterpart, and now I've lost him. I'm never going to be able to feel what I was capable of feeling with Jeremy. I'm never going to be seen in the way that I was seen by Jeremy. And we think it's the end of God. But it's actually the beginning of God. When all of a sudden you're like, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue now. I thought things were going to be this one way, and now they're not. And everything's like a blank canvas. Everything's like an open field. I don't know what's going on. We feel lost. What's happened is this attachment ruptures. It's been ripped out. It's like these roots from this tree have been ripped out from underneath us. This is where God begins. When that happens, when all those roots are ripped out, it brings up things like your inner love addict, the deepest parts of your unworthiness, how you lack discernment, the ways that you still live in fantasy in relationships, the ways that you haven't truly come into your masculine code or your feminine code. It all comes up in that space when those roots are ripped out. And now you have to meet yourself. Now you have to meet every single aspect of yourself, of how you escaped reality within yourself relationally. So what's happening is all relational karma, all relational contracts that need to be completed, that need to be healed, have come up in the ether these past 3 months. And so what happens when you're in that cacao ceremony in California and you have the name Jeremy whispered in your ear, we think that's divine union. Really what it is karma is being revealed. Typically, on the path to coming into union with God, we need to have the deepest tethers and layers of karma revealed. Relationally, we often have to go through a very karmic experience or multiple karmic experiences to rip out the roots so God can begin. And so when we get that sort of divine calling, what's really happening is aspects of our ego are wrapped up in how we associate our spiritual relationship to be. And there's no better way than relationally that, oh my God, this person's my soulmate. This person's my soulmate, right? And really what it's doing is it's revealing aspects of the ego that need to still die, aspects of the ego that still need to die. And that means there's a shedding process, means there's an onion peeling process that we still have to go through. And so oftentimes there is an experience where we thought something was divine union, but really what it was actually was karma's revelation. It was karma's revelation. And what this is doing is reconstructing the attachment system of the body. It's essentially addressing every single human attachment, and leading to you now attaching to God, where you're truly going to come in a union with God. But in that process, of truly coming into union with God, it's going to bring up every single ounce of your deepest unworthiness and your ancestors' unworthiness. Everywhere that you're not in union with yourself, everywhere that you project some sense of lack of inner wholeness onto a relationship, everywhere you project some lack of inner wholeness onto a relationship. These past 3 months, what has been coming up is all the aspects that are getting in the way in terms of your own internal sovereignty and union that are not allowing you to truly move to the vibration of your sacred union timeline. And this is happening at varying degrees. This is happening at varying degrees, which is also going to bring up the lack of balance between your own masculine and feminine energies, the way you're not truly connected to source essence, the way that your ego is still intervening with your relationship to God and source. And so there's a major ego eradication process that has been happening, a major heart-connected, heart chakra way of relating to the world, where your heart chakra can blast open and every part of you can now exchange with your reality with more of a integrated ego by eradicating the ego so that it can reintegrate. And so everywhere that you're not within inner union with yourself is now coming to the surface. It's now coming to the surface. That's why we go through this rupture that we kind of think is the end of God, when really it's just the beginning of God. Now we really begin the process of actually opening the crown. Now we begin the process of actually opening the crown. Where now, and so as that attachment rupture happens in a relationship, you have Jeremy whispered in your ear, and then you have this relationship with this guy, Jeremy, who you thought was your be-all to end-all, but we're relating. We're like that little girl who had weddings in her front yard and was like, Jeremy, one day. It's very wounded. It's very spiritual ego. It's very spiritual ego. All of that has to shatter. All of that has to shatter. And this is why so much of what the spiritual community talks about sacred union and divine union is what I call pre-God, pre the divine. It's actually being spoken from a spiritual ego place. And people don't realize the gauntlet that you have to travel down to truly prepare your body and system for true divine sacred union. People have no idea the fucking gauntlet that you have to move down. You have to peel every sort of ancestral cord from your body that is holding you in some sort of karmic contract. And so that's what's happened these past 3 months. So much karma, particularly relational karma. So there's been a lot preparing us for sort of this portal, right? Where certain relational patterns are now coming to a head and have been coming to a head these past 3 months. And we're having to look at where our unworthiness, where the lack of wholeness, where the lack of discernment internally keeps you in a karmic relational pattern that probably is still holding cords as well that are ancestral. So it's things that are happening in your life, but it's also ancestral cords, which is why there's so much crown, going on. When we're dealing with so much crown energy, we're dealing with the ancestors. We're dealing with other lifetimes. When we're dealing with the crown, it's the activation of other generations. And so when we're dealing with the crown constantly, we're dealing with the activation of karmic contracts that extend well beyond just our lifetime. But usually what happens is these contracts play out in our lifetime. And so you can ask yourself right now, what relational karma have you been asked to complete these past 3 months? What sort of contracts have come to an end? What patterns and ways of relating inside of yourself are being asked to come to a head? What's really going to come up through this portal is if you don't face the karma and complete it in your body, you will continue to suffer. If you don't face the karma allow it to complete in your body, you will continue to suffer. You won't move onto the sacred union timeline. So it's this incredible opportunity. And this is happening at different layers and levels for people, depending where they're at in their evolution. But what it's trying to do is purge so much of this karma so that we can now step forward onto more of like a divine timeline. Karma, the divine. Karma is very much looping, stagnation, recreating. Divine is very much moving into unprecedented territory. We're stepping into unprecedented territory that has never before happened, maybe for us and for our ancestors. And so what's going to happen is if we're able to move that karma through our body, if we're able to really recognize what that karma is for us and what we're really being asked to shift, and we can allow it just to move through the vessel and to open us, to complete within us, then we're now going to move into a new paradigm and vibration where things that have historically been stagnant are now able to move. Areas of our power, areas of relating through our own sovereignty, we're able to move into our power. Where areas where we'd historically been stuck, and think about it, stuckness is suffering. When we're stuck, we're suffering. When something isn't moving, we're suffering, right? When something is stuck, it feels hopeless. It feels hopeless, right? And so what's happened these past 3 months, as there's been this massive compression of space and energy, it's kind of puts us in this holding pattern, right? This energetic holding pattern, this compression of energy, to allow certain strands and threads of karma to integrate, to complete, to descend down through the body so that we can finally get out of this compression and stagnation to begin to move forward. And so we have to ask ourselves, what karma is being asked to complete within us? What relational karma is being asked to complete within us? And a really big piece of this is ways that we haven't been relating relationally through our power, the ways that we give our power away, the ways that we continue to relate through old identities, the ways that we continue to show up through old patterns, the ways that we live in fantasy, the ways that we spearhead relationally through a sense of unworthiness, how we leak energy, how we lack internal boundaries, meaning we overstep. We internal boundaries, we overstep ourself through patterns of ego. Ego is associated with old identities, old patterns. Ego is associated with, I don't feel worthy. I need to find some sort of approval or comfort or co-regulation in a certain way that I can't provide for myself, and ways that we allow other people to overstep our boundaries. And so every single place in our body, in our life, where you don't relate through your power, through your sovereignty, through your discernment, is coming up. It's right there. So you guys might be noticing that. There's been a lot of relational completion. Maybe you've actually had tangible completion with old connections. Maybe there's been some of your old familiar patterns are coming to a head, or maybe what you're actually noticing is that you're breaking into new territory in ways that you've never broken into new territory in certain ways of relating, that you're showing up in your power in certain ways that you've never experienced. Something that's happening in my space, just to bring you a little bit into my story, I'm moving into this space of total availability and openness, but crazy fucking levels of discernment. Crazy fucking levels of discernment. And discernment means you're vetting through your entire embodied channel. Meaning, and when you move into healthy discernment, it means you're actually healing that unworthiness piece. Think about when you're getting to know someone. You know, when you get to know someone and people just give themselves immediately, they give themselves immediately. That's coming from an inherent place of fantasy, from unworthiness. Some aspect of them doesn't feel worthy, which now is they're totally moving outside of their own embodiment and integration. And that's how karma exists, right? When we think about sacred union timelines, it's not that you're in a cacao ceremony, you hear the word Jeremy. It's when two deep embodied wholeness and sovereignty of energy meets in orbit. It meets in orbit. And so much of that, when you have the whisper of Jeremy in your ear and you're like, oh my God, Jeremy, that means some aspect of yourself does not feel worthy, that you lack actual discernment, that there's ego running rampant in your space that hasn't been eradicated in your body. And so there has to be a massive ego death relationally, which opens us up to sort of the unprecedented territory of sacred union. Because when that ego dies, that's when you move into healthy discernment. You're not getting swayed into dysregulation. You're not getting swayed into fantasy. You live in the fucking reality. You live in the fucking reality because you're not trying to compensate for some lack of worthiness within yourself, right? And think about how much we do that relationally. Some lack of wholeness, some lack of sovereignty in our own field. And so we move outside of ourselves so quickly. We can't hold the fort. We can't hold the space. And when we do that, we become subject to karma cycles, trauma bonds, relationships that are built in fantasy and not built in reality. And so many people who have a spiritual contract with God, if you're called and you're anointed by God, you often have to experience this type of relational rupture in order to truly open into your gifts. What happens when you live in relational fantasy, when you're being spearheaded by like an inner love addict that is like, ooh, like where's my divine partner? Divine partner. Think about how much people want relationships. Think about how much people are like hunting for that fucking relationship. Spiritual people. I need my king. I need my white knight. But when we relate in that way, we never come into our code. We never truly come into the gift, our true spiritual gift and our true spiritual power. But then when that sort of false bravado begins to shatter, when the ego gets checked, and when we have to come to fierce reality in the body, that's truly when our gifts begin to come online. That's truly when your psychic capacity begins to come. That's truly when your capacity for the full amount of energy that you're capable of accessing begins to enter your field. The crown begins to blast open. Now you're coming into union with God. What's happening is attachment is being what that means is in your body, you are going through a very embodied experience of every single thread of attachment and fear is being ripped out from underneath you. Do you guys understand that? Every little thread of fear and attachment is being fucking ripped out from underneath you. That's why you let go of certain relationships and you're like, I'm never going to love someone as much as I've loved them. I'm never going to be seen as much as I've been seen by them, which is actually so far from the truth. What it really is it's your ego. You're relating through ego. And the reason why it's so difficult is because there's so much attachment in your body that is being pulled out. Even attachment from other lifetimes, different contracts from other lifetimes, attachment from the generational ancestral realm, which is why your crown is fucking blasting open. The reason why your crown is blasting open because ancestral contracts and ancestral karma is healing and being cleared through your body. That's why you're exhausted. That's why your crown is fucking exploding. That's why the amount of energy that you're beginning to access is becoming otherworldly. Attachment is being ripped out. Now, what happens as that karma, as that attachment begins to disintegrate and leave your field, now you begin to relate to other human beings so through reality. And you begin to ask yourself this question, am I really seen here? Am I really seen by this person? Is this person really on the same timeline as me? Is this person really moving at a similar trajectory to me? And you're beginning to vet without those deep embedded cords of attachment, right? So much of what we're doing relationally before this shattering, we're hooking into other people. We're hooking into other people with cords inside of ourselves that are holding on to patterns and identities from our past. We're holding on to karma. They become karma staples, karma's pillars. And then when it goes, whew, when that twin flame leaves our life, when we get out of that karmic relationship, when that person we thought was going to be everything doesn't end up working, the karma pillars, whew, whew. And now we're opening up the possibility to truly moving into union with ourself, truly moving into divine sovereign union with ourselves. As those pillars are ripped apart, every ounce of unworthiness in your body, every way that you used to cope with a sense of unworthiness is on full fucking display. That's why these past 3 months have been so hard. Because every little shred of karma in your body that is not allowing you from moving on to the timeline that God wants you to move on to is coming up. It's right fucking in front of your nose. And it's not going away. It's right there. And it's wanting you to stare it cold in the face. And ask yourself, are you going to step forward onto this? Are you going to step forward with the responsibility of this path? And now what happens as you do that? You're no longer holding on to threads and cords from the past. You're in unprecedented territory of the divine creation within you. This is where your energy can light on fire. Where the primal codes and that primal fever and fire inside of you, it no longer has little threads and cords that are trying to hold it back. You're able to fully go. You're able to fully go. And when you can do that, when you allow the power in your vessel to move unhinged and uninhibited in your body, you move on to sacred union timeline. Because you're in a full reclamation and declaration of your power, that you will recognize where you're met. You will recognize where you're seen. And your ego is not involved with it. It's now God being infused through you. You're fully moving into your code, unrestrained and unrestricted. You're not holding back. You're not being pulled back. What happens, you guys, is when we go through a really big relational attachment rupture, it is also revealing the ways that these cords of attachment have held us back from being in our own power. Because what happens when you move into your divine creation of your power, the true unhingedness of your body and vessel, the liberation of your psychic and spiritual gifts, you no longer fit within the dome of that human attachment that you had in the early goings with mom and dad. You blast those barriers wide open. You blast those barriers wide open. That's why your crown is opening. The reason why your crown is really beginning to open because you are blasting through those attachment cords of fear in the human realm that are connecting you more to the psychic spiritual realm. And that's why your crown is blasting open. That's why you're accessing so much ancestral energy. When you are breaking a human attachment cord and a human attachment imprint in your body, the crown blasts open and all you begin to do is access the ancestral realm. All you begin to do is access the ancestral realm. And when you begin to access the ancestral realm, what is the divine feminine? What is the divine masculine? The divine masculine is the primal surge that comes on the other side of ancestral energy integrating into your body. What is the divine feminine? It's the feminine primal surge that comes into your body when you begin to dispel and integrate ancestral energy through your body. You see people flippantly online talking about divine masculine, divine feminine. When divine masculine and divine feminine is the feminine and masculine codes that you find on the other side of ancestral energy. If you're not working in the ancestral field, you're not working in the divine masculine or the divine feminine. And typically, in order to really accelerate this process, there has to be this massive attachment rupture that happens where the deepest layers of fear and unworthiness have to shake and shatter through your body so that your system can begin to root into its power and the holding of its power without any bounds. Think about what happens at a human realm. Oh, I don't want to step in my power because then I feel guilty that I'm going to be more powerful than my mom, or I'm going to outshine a sibling. That's all attachment. That's all attachment. And those are the very same things that keep you in karmic relationships. Those very same things of, oh, I don't want to upset the unwritten rules of the family, or I don't want to move in my power in a way that it threatens the abandonment from my parents. That's what fuels your karmic relationships, because you're driven by attachment in this human sphere that never allows you to move into sort of your divine imprint. And when you live in that shame and that guilt, and you don't allow the transmission of God and your power to break through, then you conveniently begin to hold onto cords in your body. Cords on your body that keep you out of your power relationally, and out of your power creatively, and out of your power in terms of how you interchange with the world. This is why you can't fucking build the business that you want. This is why your creativity is limited. This is why you continue to call in relationships where people suck your fucking energy, because you're still conveniently holding on to these cords. And what those cords do is, as we hold on to them, we don't have to move the deepest strands and threads of unworthiness through our body. As those cords begin to break off, the unworthiness is swirling. The unworthiness is there. So if you guys have been feeling like depressed, exhausted, so much shame, I'm a piece of shit, I'm never going to amount to anything, that means these attachment cords are being broken. And they're actively trying to be broken through this portal so that it can free up the energy that is trying to come through your body so you can step into the true liberation of your vessel. Do you guys understand that? Oh, that unworthiness. I'm a piece of shit. I'm never going to achieve my dreams. That's all that unworthiness that is being shaken up. It's being shaken up because those cords are being snapped. Those cords are being snapped. That's why your crown is beginning to open. Your crown is beginning to open when attachment is beginning to distill and dispel through your body. When someone's crown has an open, it means their attachment wounding, their attachment fear is holding. They can't let go. They're in a karmic cycle. This is the end of karma, the beginning of the divine. When this, but as this opens, as the crown opens, you will go through a process of still having karma revealed at new and new layers and levels. It is the ultimate process of your vessel moving into uninhibited, unprecedented territory for your life and your lineage. And so what you're going to notice is a lot of relational healing and completion is being asked to be completed. You're going to see a lot of the areas and ways and feelings and emotions and stories and identities and patterns in your body that have not allowed you to be in your power relationally or be in your true fucking sovereignty. And it's going to come up, and it's been trying to move through so that you could dispel those attachment cords that are keeping you in patterns of unworthiness, keeping you in patterns of disembodied lack of sovereignty within yourself. And as As those chords move, the crown opens more, the field expands. You're going to begin to move into unprecedented territory, which is the sacred union timeline. That space where you don't relate to relationships through fantasy. You're so fucking in the earth. You're so fucking in the earth. You're like, let's go slow. Like, let me really feel into my body. Let me really fucking vet in my body how this feels. Let me really, really take my time feeling into this person's energy. Because you feel whole. You feel sovereign in yourself. Your power is beginning to become embodied at a different level. What that means is your root chakra is integrating. When your root chakra integrates, your field expands at your hips. And now you can hold. You can hold your psychic gifts, your spiritual power. The root chakra expands. Now, when the root chakra begins to integrate, what it means is the new paradigm is hitting Earth. When the root chakra opens, the new paradigm is hitting Earth. You guys understand that? When the root, that means the new paradigm is beginning to hit Earth. The reason why these spiritual fucks continue to stay in karma is because their root is not capable of opening at these new levels to ground and embody the new paradigm. So they stay stuck in karmic timelines. Up here, swirling. And the crown is open through patterns of ego, not through divine integration and embodiment. When your root is not truly open and your crown is open, it means it's through spiritual ego. When you're truly in sovereignty of God's message, it means that your root will open and expand proportionally to the crown. They're communicating. This means higher dimensions are communicating with the earth, the soil. When the crown and the root are working together in tandem of proportional opening, it means the higher dimensions are communicating with the earthly realm through your body. And so as the root opens, energy down, expands. Your base is becoming bigger. It's becoming thicker. Now what it means is your primal masculine code, your primal divine feminine code is rooted. It means you're going to be able to hold a more powerful frequency in your space. It means that unworthiness is now merging with worthiness. That you actually, because the new paradigm is becoming integrated. It's becoming embodied. It's not swirly like this. And so what's been happening through this portal, you guys, is the energy's been so swirling that the root hasn't been able to catch up, right? So as this portal, the integration of this portal happens, the root will begin to catch up, meaning holding the new paradigm that's coming, That's why people stay in karma, because the root can't catch up, meaning they haven't dealt with their core trauma. They haven't moved through a certain level of integrating the core trauma to open in their body. Because when the root starts to open, it starts to communicate with the crown. Now the earthly realm begins to communicate with the higher dimensions. Now what this means is you're going to be able to hold more boundaries. You're going to be able to hold more discernment. We'll lack discernment when the root is blocked. We're going to lack discernment when the root is blocked. We're going to look for salvation. We're going to look for fantasy. We're going to be at that fucking cacao ceremony in California and have the name Jeremy whisper in our ear when our root is not open. When your root's open, you begin to move into this bull-like, thick sort of tree energy where you can now hold the new paradigm. And this is necessary for the body to prepare for that sacred union timeline. That place when you're going to be able to hold a higher dimensional realm in your body. And it's going to be represented to what you can hold in your body. If you want to think about, as you're trying to move into like a sacred union timeline, prepare for the king and queen sort of code exchange of the divine that is trying to coming. It is going to be related to what you can hold in your body and how you hold it. It's going to be connected to how the energy centers in your body merge and communicate with each other. How open your root is able to be. And in exchange with your crown. And so as the root really drops and it spreads open, your hips get really wide. And what it means is you begin to have the foundation within your body and your system to hold the frequency of this new energy field trying to come in, this new sort of paradigm. When that happens and that integrates and the root opens, karmic contracts are being completed. Karma is being dispelled. And now that root opening and widening is setting the footing for a divine incarnation, for a divine imprint to come into our body. And so when the root can hold the crown blasting open, it means you can hold your higher self timeline. It means you can hold more of your power. It means you're not going to contract or concede. It means those attachment cords are being, like imagine a boat, you guys. Imagine a boat on a dock. And you untie the boat goes out to sea. That's what happens when these attachment cords leave. And so when someone really, really comes into the divine, when you move into a sacred union timeline, the crown is blasting open with the root. And as the crown is blasting through the root, all these ancestral cords are leaving your field. And now what's going to happen is you're going to move into the space of open availability and discernment and boundaries, where you've had your ego checked enough, where you have that the name Jeremy whispered in your ear. That just doesn't happen anymore because you've already died that ego death. You have that fucking name Jeremy. You know the stories where someone's like, I had a dream and this was my person. That's all wounded ego shit. That's all karma. So that's not the divine. And we usually need to learn this the hard way on this path of spiritual embodiment, of divine embodiment. That's karma. That's woundedness. That's our root chakra is not open in the realm of our crown. That's why that sort of wounded patterning is coming up. And so as that wounded patterning begins to heal, as the crown can open at new layers of the root, now you're not drawn into those old familiar patterns and identities. You're literally shifting paradigms. And what you're going to do is you're not going to be with people in realms of the ego. You're not going to be drawn into that. You're going to feel more foundational in your own system of where you're at, what you're doing and what you're creating and where you're actually seeing. You're going to be like, what it's going to be is you're going to be so hyper aware of people who are on different timelines and operating in different paradigms, different relationships and connections right now. You're going to be so fucking aware. That person's on a different timeline. That's not from ego. It's from just knowing the energies of reality. I'm on a different path than that person. I know it. I feel it. And so it becomes really acute. Your intuition razor fucking sharp, because now what's happened, you guys, is ego has been dispelled. So your intuition is pure God. Your intuition is pure God. And this is what tries to happen. So often when we have that name, Jeremy, oh, I'm going to marry someone named Jeremy, our ego and our intuition are battling. And that attachment rupture is so ego can die, so ego can drop, fear can dispel, intuition can rule the kingdom. Intuition can rule the kingdom. God's source can live inside of us. And we feel it through this full embodied thing in our vessel. It's not this wounded, this severing of self, moving outside of ourselves. We're so inside of ourselves. And now we can move into the space of knowing in a whole different way, in a greater union with God, which this is when our energy begins to feel more sovereign. This is when we begin to feel so secure and safe in the unknown. This is when we begin to become unfuckwithable. This is when we really begin to trust ourselves. This is when we really begin to heal those karmic relational patterns. This is where the inner love addict is healed. This is where those deepest strands and threads of unworthiness are healed. That you're vetting from this full embodied place. And there's a level of discernment that comes into your body and space because Your ego has been dissolved in such a way through what's moved through your body and vessels through this portal that now your intuition's on fucking fire. And you'll notice more creativity beginning to come. You'll notice the new paradigm beginning to merge, or emerge, I should say. So many people are moving onto sacred union timelines. The real chosen ones, the ones who are able to really complete this karma right now. And their vessels are at a space in their incarnation where their vessels can begin to open to this new divine imprint, and enough karma is moving through the body that they can open their vessel to this divine incarnation. This is what's happening right now. And that sacred union timeline is on the other side of ancestral energy moving through our body so the field can blast wide open. And now as we exchange with our power and our creativity, there are no more cords. We're unhinged. We're unbound. Everything is alive inside of us. Our light and our radiance is on fire. The creativity is beginning to brew. More humor, more joy, more playfulness, more not taking ourselves so seriously. And things feel different. This is why certain connections will be coming close and certain will be moving farther away. What happens there is you're beginning to merge into a new timeline and a new paradigm. That's why certain connections come close, certain move farther away, because what's creating is there's a greater energetic separation between what no longer serves you and where you're not seen. So what's going to happen now is some people might feel really far away energetically. What you might notice is there's some sort of connections that you used to get embroiled into that suddenly no longer have a charge, or suddenly no longer suit your appetite, or suddenly no longer have an interest. You're moving towards a different sort of exchange. What you actually might be moving into a spaces where you're actually available for receptivity. You might actually be able to move into a space where you can actually receive. And you can recognize where you're not capable of receiving. When we're not capable of receiving, there's two things that are happening. Our ego is exchanging a pattern where our ego is getting something from them that suits us egoically, but the ego actually blocks us from truly being receptive. The ego keeps us into a familiar identity and imprint where we're serving something. There's something that we're serving, but ultimately what we're serving is we're creating a block and a barrier within ourselves to be receptive, both to God and both potentially this person that we're with. You guys understand that? That's what karmic relationships do. They block us from truly ever actually receiving from this person and from God. And they keep us binded in a karmic recreation and cycling so we don't truly have to blow apart all those attachment tethers and cords to actually begin to truly receive our power from God. The ego, that becomes a way that we live in projection and we actually deny ourselves of our true psychic capabilities, of our true power and the energetic capability that wants to exist in our body. And so when that ego gets dispelled, we now begin to exchange here with God, totally wide open, unrestricted. And now you're beginning to feel worthy to be indoctrinated into these gifts, these powers. What comes through you? There's no cords. There's no filtering. It's direct. It's fucking direct. This is where someone's energy feels pure. In the last live, I talked about a purity of energy. Someone's energy feels fucking holy. It feels godlike. That means they're through line to this. There's no fucking obstruction. There's no obstruction. It's right here. And it's direct. When that happens, we won't settle for someone who can't meet us. We won't settle for a place where we can't receive, where we can't give and receive. A sacred union. That's where sacred union opens up. This is blasted to this in exchange with the root. Now we have an imprint and a template for the message of God within us. This divine template and imprint lives in our fucking body. And when that happens, we can truly recognize when another person is in that space or they're not. This is where the holy ones find each other. The ancient ones find each other. The chosen ones find each other. The ancient oracles find each other and come in a union. And so much of healing up here is having to create more of a balance between your own masculine and feminine energy within yourself. Because what you're doing is you're actually course correcting all the karma in the lineage between the maternal line and the paternal line. That's the only way the crown opens. The crown won't open if you're not actively healing the karma of the lineage. So that's what's happening. That's what the integration of this portal is all about. We're about to take a big leap, a big step. It's already happening. And it's not even a big leap or big step. When I say a big leap or big step, what it really is the code dropping into your root. It's a code dropping into your root. When the code drops into your root, it's kind of like the door fully opens and you're like, I get it. I understand it. It's clear. Because when the root opens, it means you're beginning to hold the new frequency. It means you're beginning to hold the new paradigm. And so the reason why you've been in fucking chaos for 3 months is because the root hasn't really been able to open. The root's been a little bit inundated, overwhelmed, too much at one time. There's been gridlock on Highway 95. But now, the bumper to bumper, little space is beginning to open up. Little space beginning to open up. You can take an exhale. The new paradigm beginning to emerge ever so slightly. It's like basically a new dimension just locks into your space. It's like, whoop, 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 whoop. And now it makes sense. You're like, whoo, I get it. I understand it. That's where that relationship that once suited you, the charge is gone. The context of how you relate to it is different. You've moved on to a different timeline. You've moved on to a different timeline, which is a deeper embodiment of your power without these cords of fear. These attachment cords of fear and the ancestors fucking trying to hook in you. You're like, fuck off. I'm going to claim the fucking genius I am. I'm going to claim the brilliance I am. Unhinged, unbound, let's fucking go. And that's what's happening. And in that space, you're open but discerning. You've healed the deepest strands and threads of unworthiness. You've gone to the basement floor and you've scraped the psychic pot. You've scraped all the gunk and gluck that is getting in the way from allowing yourself to truly create a direct line with Source and a truly allowing God to live within you. Now, as this really integrates, you begin to move into more patterns of flow and ease. You don't have to fight uphill so hard. You don't have to work so hard, that you're able to actually become this sort of psychic creator, this sort of receptive generator, where you can actually move into this creation with God. You allow things to drop into your body. There's no obstruction. This field, this sort of psychic space up here is wide fucking open, and you're in this direct line with Source, where you're fully downloading your code. When you download your code, that is where you prepare for sacred union. When the code begins to download in your body, that means sacred union is beginning to drop into your body. That's what's happening. There's no interference here. It's like a clear antenna to the skies that is landing in your root, spreading wide open. You can hold the expansive field truly in your body. A psychic realm merges in the earthly space, crown to root. The psychic space now opens so wide, and it begins to change your eyes in front of you, the third eye. Everything becomes clear. The colors change. Your perception of reality shifts. You can see things differently. Suddenly, relationships that had certain charges, that begins to dispel. Certain relationships move farther away. Certain come closer together. Everything shifts and change. Areas that felt stuck or stagnant starts to shake up and move. All of a sudden, your capacity of what you can hold and access in your body expands. Things that you couldn't move into, you procrastinated, you had resistance with, suddenly opens, and you can move into an expansion of your creativity that you never knew existed. And you move into the space where you're accessing different threads and cords of your channel that is unobstructed, that is living through you as God's word and revelation. The new paradigm is dropping into your body and space. Contract has been completed. Karma is being dispelled. You feel that when the root's dropping and expanding. You no longer look for fantasy, Jeremy whispering in your ear at the fucking California cacao ceremony. You're not swayed into that space. Your body's dropped deep down to the earth. Now, what's happening is you're having this psychic spiritual experience here on the earth. You don't need to look for a romantic relationship for that sort of fantasy escape salvation. You already have God inside of you right now. You already have this spiritual experience inside of you right now, dropped all the way to your root deep down into the earth. You don't have to escape your own experience. Now, how you vet relationally shifts, it changes. You will vet for another oracle, another chosen one on this path where someone is living this pure Holy Spirit within themselves. And what happens is their exchange with God is so fucking pure. What it means, you guys, is there's no cords and threads of fear. We're afraid to come into our power with God to fully experience what could live inside of us. We're afraid to fully experience that power, to be so blasted wide open without the interference of ego. We're afraid to fully experience what could live inside of us with all these threads and cords that are holding on in our body that we don't allow ourselves. We stay tied to the family of origin, the ancestors of origin, the karmic patterns, ego interference. As this all moves, we move into total exchange with God, everything blasts wide open. This is what Sacred Union timeline is. It's the same as your higher self timeline. Everyone on the fucking internet loves to talk about Sacred Union, divine masculine, divine feminine. They don't really understand it, though, truly. Very few on this path truly understand it or truly are in the fucking embodiment of it. This is what's happening right now, and this is what this portal has been about. What you're going to notice is little things are beginning to break through in the ether in your space. The root drops, it opens, expands. Now it can hold it. It can hold the new psychic paradigm that's coming. It can hold this new timeline. When your root drops, it expands. It can hold it. It can hold the space. And now it can exist. And now your spiritual potential, what you're capable of accessing, can live here on earth. You can actually create it. You can bring it. It's no longer fantasy. It's no longer you need a love that feels like a romance novel. You already have that romance novel in your body. You don't need to escape yourself. It's inside of yourself. You don't need to look for something else because the magic is right here inside of you and it's grounded. It's hitting the earth as your root expands and drops and holds your crown and your direct line to source. It's right here. And you don't have to escape it. This is when embodied vetting and discernment for the Sacred Union timeline happens. And this is where your higher self begins to come into orbit. Everything you've wanted to create, your God's Dharma, that business, that creativity, whatever you've wanted to bring into this space, it begins to come from this place. This is what's happening. And you will know it. You will know it. Because areas where you held on with cords and threads of fear, even right now as I'm in this place, allowing my channel, there are zero fucking restrictions in my body, my channel, and what I'm accessing. Zero threads and cords of fear. We're going all the way. All the way into the full energetic velocity and vibration of what we're capable of accessing. And as we do that, we fully exchange, we fully get our code, we fully get our gifts in our body and our flesh. And as this integrates and picks up space, buries itself into the soil, we move forward onto this timeline. And the new paradigm begins to move out of a twilight zone into this embodied knowing, this embodied visceral living at a cellular level. And if you're listening to this and you resonate, it's probably resonating in your fucking cells right now, rearranging the fabric in your very cellular DNA to embody on yourself in this paradigm. This is what's happening. This is where we're going. These are the people that are the cutting edge of the cutting edge who are leading this new evolution of spiritual paradigm that is coming into the space. And it's happening right now. And this is what this portal has been about. Your energy is about to become more unhinged. The new paradigm is going to reveal itself more than it ever has. And it's going to drop into your root and spread wide. It's able to hold the opening of the crown. And you're going to be able to move forward in a way that you've never been able to move forward and hold this vibration imprint that you've never been able to hold before. And as you do that, you know that you're getting closer to your divine union, to your sacred timeline, to that sacred relationship where wholeness meets wholeness, sovereignty meets sovereignty, where code with God meets code with God. Ego has been eradicated, been dispelled from the body to truly move into an actual imprint of creation. As the deepest ancestral and attachment cords have been purged and dispelled from the body, we can finally create. And we can finally create from our full fucking potential. All right, everyone. I'm going to leave it there. Look at that, right at an hour. So if you guys resonate with this, if you wouldn't mind giving this a like, sending it to a friend who might also resonate with some of the stuff that I jammed on here. And of course, if you haven't already, I would love for you guys to subscribe to my channel so you can get access to more content like this as we move forward. And whoever was here with their presence, with their ears and their eyes, I appreciate you guys listening to this transmission. And yeah, any questions about anything, you can hit me up on Instagram, or you can write your reflections, your comments in the comment section of this video, in the recording and the replay. And other than that, wishing everyone a incredible weekend ahead and sending a lot of love to everyone. And we'll see you next time.